Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a pleasant day thus far, and I will ask your indulgence. I awakened with a seasonal allergy that has affected my voice. I appear to have the range of Barry White to Aretha Franklin at any moment's notice, so bear with me. But nothing could keep me away from this important conference and this opportunity to share with our state's child hunger leaders and to share with you how appreciative we are for all that you do to continue to close the gap where child hunger is concerned. I could listen to Catherine's comments repeatedly. She is such a champion for school nutrition. I hope you see that and I hope you feel that. She's certainly been instrumental in helping our state policymakers understand the needs of our students who are most economically vulnerable. When she talks about the contributions from our state legislators to close the gap related to the student copay for reduced price meals, that is a huge effort moving forward. I think we certainly want to acknowledge the leadership of our elected officials in recognizing the needs of our most vulnerable. You know, I think it's also important to notice that Catherine has included in her Polaris plan the importance for including school support initiatives like school nutrition at the center of making the school environment the best it can be for our students. And I want to remind you of something that she mentioned in her comments. She referred to each of us in this room as educators. And in just a moment, I'm going to challenge you to step up to the plate and assume that role as educator as we embrace the opportunities to share the nutrition stories. As I reflect on what's transpired since we were last together, I think that was in 2019, as we were last together, you have done amazing work to continue to nourish our students, our children, in fact, bodies, minds, and souls. Without your work during the pandemic, we likely would have faced a secondary public health crisis of child food insecurity that was even beyond what we had imagined. But your leadership, your resilience, your resolve, and your commitment every day, day in and day out, helped us to prevent that crisis. And as we've emerged from the pandemic, and we look at restoring what appears to be our new normal in the public school environment, we have you to thank for being present every day to make sure that students have access to the most nutritious, appealing, affordable, and accessible meals possible. That's a huge step forward as we see that you're facing some of the most challenging days, as you heard earlier, and as you experience every day. Staffing shortages make it very difficult to do the work that we did prior to the pandemic. Increasing food costs are another factor that we're having to weigh every day and look at how we're going to move forward to keep the program sustainable. How do we continue to garner the funding we need to address those food costs? And of course, those supply chain shortages that make it sometimes a surprise as to what the day's menu will be. But you continue to move forward with resolve. In prior years, we have taken every action measurable. I remember our first virtual conference where our focus was on pivoting, changing what we need to do to meet the changing target. You've continued to pivot. You've begun to be masterful storytellers. You've done such a great job of telling your story that there are many now who are aware of the crisis of child food insecurity and chronic hunger that we have in our state. Let's not forget that we continue to be that state that vacillates between the 8th, 9th, and 10th largest for child food insecurity. But hopefully, days like today will help us change our position on that statewide statistic. We're going to continue to close that gap. As we look at how we're providing meals to children, I think it's important to recognize that we continue to do an exceptional job of addressing the needs of what we've considered to be the economically disadvantaged students, those children whose households qualify for free or reduced price meals. We've often heard of them as economically disadvantaged. I want to introduce a new concept to you today, and that is the economically distressed household. I think there are many of us in this room who will understand what it feels to be economically distressed in an environment that is changing as rapidly as ours. But it's our economically distressed households that I continue to be most concerned about at this point in time. These are households whose children do not qualify for free or reduced price meals, yet their incomes are just too low to afford the cost of school meals. you might be interested to know that the average cost of producing a school meal in North Carolina is $3.85. The meal pricing, of course, can range, as you know well. This situation can often force families to pay $5, $6 for breakfast and lunch at school. And for many of our economically distressed households, that price is just outside of their reach. So while we often think of meals at school as a convenience for families, meals at school are actually safety nets for these children, both economically disadvantaged and economically distressed. Now, perhaps one of the most telling statistics that I bring you today to show you the impact of this economic distress is the most recent result of the survey on school meal debt, unpaid school meal debt. You may recall that in November we reported that level of unpaid school meal debt at $1.3 million. Well, at the end of December, that figure escalated to a little over $3.1 million. This is self-reported information from our school districts. They're telling us what they're seeing their meal debt. We're about to launch another survey that will help give us an idea of what the school meal debt is as of March. So those of you in the room who are asked to complete those surveys, thank you in advance for letting us have that information so we can share that information with policymakers. Seldom does a day pass that I don't have a request from a member of our General Assembly. What's the current meal debt? They've now begun watching it almost on a daily basis. That figure is telling. This represents households whose income is probably someplace between 185% of poverty to 225% of poverty. These households qualify for other federal food assistance, yet they don't qualify for meal benefits. This is a tremendous opportunity, again, for us to look at strategies to close the gap. Because we know that children who are hungry cannot learn. We know that children who are hungry and are poorly nourished have poor brain function and very limited cognition. This will impact their ability to learn every day in the classroom, but it will also impact their ability to succeed in the future. They have limited attention spans. We've all seen hungry children just like hungry adults. We can't sit still for long and pay attention. We have difficulty concentrating on complex tasks. We all know all too often how quickly hungry can lead to hangry. And as a result, what the consequences in the classroom may look like, more behavioral problems that often result in children being removed from the classroom. We know that children who are hungry and hangry perform less proficiently on standardized test scores and are more likely to be retained a grade. So the impact, the education impact, short and long term, is huge. So as I mentioned earlier, our state superintendent has referred to each of you as educators. I want to challenge you in the coming weeks and months. Do just that. Do what you do well. Educate your policymakers, your decision makers, members of our General Assembly, members of your local boards of education, members of your communities, teachers, principals, anyone who can help us take the message forward for our students. I'm happy to see so many Teachers of the Year and Principals of the Year in this room. Your work has been also instrumental in helping to take this story forward as you've embraced the issue of child hunger as part of your statewide platform. The energy and the innovation and the enthusiasm that comes from your messaging has reaped dividends for us, and we are all personally and professionally grateful to you. So as we move forward, let's educate, educate, educate. Let's educate about what it will take to sustain our school nutrition program. Yes, we're going to need funding to do that. Let's educate principals and superintendents about the importance of making sure that students have adequate time to consume the meals that are provided for them. They are wholesome, nutritious. In fact, we all know meals at school are the most nutritious available to students and children at any time. Let's educate our policymakers about the need to support more fresh, locally grown agricultural products in our school nutrition programs. Students love fresh. They thrive on fresh. And last, certainly not least, let's educate our policymakers that school meals are already helpful. They're the most helpful available to students. School meals already meet the dietary guidelines for Americans. There's no need to increase the standard as we go forward, to increase more whole grains, to decrease the sodium, and to make modifications in milk and dairy products. Thank you. Unfortunately, while well-intended, these kinds of changes at this time will only increase cost, will only increase food waste, and will likely only increase participation in programs that children need so desperately. So please, please, take time, make time to comment on the proposed rule. Your voices matter, and it's important that we step up on behalf of the students we serve and serve as their extended voices. Don't be shy about speaking up. I thank you again for all that you do every day to nourish students' bodies, minds, and souls, which will ultimately enable them to do their best every day at school and to continue to do their best every day in life. Thank you again so much for the opportunity and the privilege to be with you and celebrate with you. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a real pleasure to get a few moments to speak with you this morning. And what an honor it is to follow Dr. Harvey. I must say I'm a little disappointed, though. I was really hoping for a bust out of Aretha, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Maybe during break. Huh? I have been very honored this year to have been chosen the School Nutrition Association National Director of the Year. It has presented many opportunities to speak with many community organizations and spread the word of our challenges and successes as we emerge from the pandemic years. But really, my most treasured accomplishment in school nutrition has been to be named the WAC champion. Just partly serious here. But it was a great event to channel my roots as a professional chef and share the work of our community with other partners and bring awareness of school nutrition and other nonprofit food service groups to the community at large. If you haven't figured it out, WAC was a take on the TV format Chopped, and I have to say my most memorable ingredient to deal with was a frozen pig's head. The intent was it to be unfrozen, but that presented special challenges. We did use the snout, the cheeks, and the brains. I didn't get to taste it. That was a memorable success in my school nutrition career, but I'd like to share other program successes we have had in Henderson County. I've been fortunate to manage a district that has really good participation in the meal programs. That's allowed us to enjoy a comfortable financial standing. With that strong financial standing and a good local donor base, we've been able to implement a few very successful auxiliary feeding programs in Henderson County. We had been slowly expanding our summer feeding program, and we took the advantage when we switched to the summer food service program to take on a major expansion. We received a grant from a local foundation, and we were able to purchase, renovate, and equip a school bus for the purpose of delivering summer meals directly to needy pockets of our community. Within 2 years, we established a number of sites and had reached the capacity of that one bus route. We realized we could use another bus, and we very quickly went through the process of bringing a second bus into the program. That bus was ready just in time for the pandemic to hit. What great timing. It did turn out to be great timing because we were able to use those buses to serve children in our community during the virtual learning period of that pandemic. We also utilized many yellow school buses and also personal drivers. Parents were volunteered to deliver meals. We had school staff delivering meals. Principals, I must reach out and thank them. They did a great job communicating with their community where was the need, and we made sure we serviced that need. In addition to delivering meals, we offered drive-up sites in most of all of our schools, and as time went on, we kind of condensed that to the areas we saw the greatest need. But during this time, we were able to serve 3/4 of our normal served meals during the school year, and we thought that was a really strong accomplishment. Another program we had launched just prior to the pandemic was Second Chance Breakfast. We had received a grant from No Kid Hungry that allowed us to buy a number of remote service carts. These are offered to take the meals directly to students in the hallways between the first and second period of school. We utilize Microsoft Surface Pros and keypads, so we have a direct point of service right at the site where the children are receiving their meals. Great picture there of what we're using. We menu enough items on those carts so we're able to operate under offer versus serve. That allows us to operate with minimal waste and actually realize a small profit by using that program. We piloted it in we have a large dual campus middle school and high school. It worked out timing great. We could run one carts from one side, high school, over to the middle school. We ran 6 carts. We went from serving 300 breakfasts to serving 1,200 breakfasts within a week, and that number has stayed up there. We were able to resurrect that program just starting in January. We expanded it to another high school and another middle school. Both of those schools, we have gone from serving 100 breakfasts to serving 400 breakfasts. So it's a great program. It takes minimal labor to operate, and it pays for itself very quickly. This year, our district also made the decision to move to universal free breakfast for the entire district. That was an addition of, That was an addition of 11 more schools to the program. As part of that expansion, we added 4 more schools to our breakfast in the classroom model. Now, these schools were not severe needs schools, so we had great trepidation on what kind of participation we were going to see within those schools. My hope was that under economic situations, Dr. Harvey has mentioned that parents would take advantage of this opportunity, and that's exactly what we've seen. These were schools that we were serving 70 to 80 breakfasts in, and we're serving 300 breakfasts in 3 of those schools. Lynn mentioned challenges in human resources. That was a challenge for us, just like everybody else. We finally started getting employees back in the beginning of the year. By this January, we were at about 98%. The beginning of the year was a real challenge. Low staffing, illnesses from COVID and flu. We thought it's all over again, but thankfully we came out of that. And many thanks to our stalwart employees that stuck with us through that time period. It's their daily contribution of feeding the children that demonstrates they are truly dedicated public servants and deserve our gratitude and support. Thank you very much.